Good evening, everyone. How are we all doing? I am Chris, and The Mandalorian is back. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. I'll let you decide, but I'm back as well, here to talk more Mandalorian. Well, the first time on this channel, we've already talked about a Star Wars show, though, Star Wars Andor, which came out a couple of months ago, which I reviewed with JX Editor. Unfortunately, he couldn't be on tonight. He's otherwise engaged, but I should be joined with JX for the remainder of these episodes, fingers crossed, because it's always good to have a conversation with someone, and he's like the biggest Star Wars aficionado that I know. So hopefully next week he can join me and we can have more of a bit of a back and forth. But for today, for the premiere episode, this is the Apostate. I think this is like technically chapter 17, isn't it? But it's episode 1 of season 3. Brand new season's back. And you've just got to put up with me today, I'm afraid, to talk about it. So here we go. Before we jump into it, though, I do want to say, let me know your thoughts on The Mandalorian. Hopefully you've watched the episode now, because this is going to be a big waste of time if you're just jumping on to hear me spoil the hell out of it, because spoilers will be coming thick and fast on this thing. I've got notes on every bit of the episode, and we're going to be going through it bit by bit. Please do consider subscribing to the channel as well. You can expect weekly Mandalorian reviews now every single Wednesday at 10 p.m. GMT. And as well as a whole bunch of movie reviews as well. We're this close to the Oscars, and I still have a number of films to watch, so there'll be reviews for those coming as well. Give me a follow on Twitter. I'll post all the times that I go live for stuff and when you can expect videos and everything like that. So please do follow me at Hobbit Fan Editor. It's going across the bottom of the screen right now. Okay, The Mandalorian. Before I dive into the actual episode properly, I kind of want to give my opinion on where we're beginning this season. And this is more of a problem with Disney's model of the Star Wars shows at the moment, namely the Book of Boba Fett, and how that technically continued Mando's story within that series. I've spoken to a lot of people today, especially at my workplace as well, and one of them said, I'm really confused at how we just start and he's back with Grogu, and we haven't seen him with Luke or anything like that, and he hadn't watched Book of Boba Fett. And I said, well, there you go. And I think a lot of people are going to have that problem. Bath Time says, I haven't seen this episode yet. Very quickly, is it worth watching or not? It's the kind of typical trap with Mandalorian. It's just the first episode, not a whole lot happens. It didn't really get me fired up or anything like that. It feels like it's just kind of going through the motions and stagnating a little bit now. It seems like a show that isn't taking chances, which is down to the whole Grogu thing, which I'm sort of touching on now, in that the end of season 2, whether you like the finale or not, that moment where I saw Luke Skywalker, the first time I watched it, actually the first couple of times I watched it, I felt like that was everything that I wanted from The Last Jedi, or an element of that. And it did fire me up. And the bit where R2-D2 came out, and I know it's just cameos from characters and characters from The Mandalorian should stand on their own, and they shouldn't have to rely on people like Luke Skywalker coming in, or R2-D2. But it was a big moment at the time, and it made me feel a sense of Star Wars joy I hadn't felt in a long time. Since then, I've kind of died down on it a little bit now, and the CGI is really ropey on Luke's face. But nevertheless, I appreciated what they were trying to do. And I thought it was an effective way. I thought it was a really fitting end for Grogu and Mando's storyline. I thought it was the perfect ending for Grogu, at least at that point in the series. And he was going to go and train off with Luke, and we'd either get a comic book series to show that or a separate TV show. And it would finally give us time with Mando on his own to build towards the Mandalore storyline and more of the interplay and the religion, I guess, of the Mandalorians and the Darksaber and everything. There was plenty of story there for Din Djarin to just continue this on his own now. As soon as we get to the Book of Boba Fett, where, terrible TV show notwithstanding, the Book of Boba Fett, randomly placed like halfway through that show towards the tail end, is 2.5 episodes of The Mandalorian, which not only convoluted the actual Mandalorian TV series, because a huge pivotal plot moment with Luke Skywalker and Grogu being reunited with Mando, that should have been saved for season 3 of The Mandalorian. That should have been your season opener. But also, just from a storytelling standpoint, it feels like they've just hit the reset button. It now feels like the big season finale that we were building to at the end of season 2 with Luke Skywalker taking Grogu away to train him as a Jedi. It feels like all of that's led to nothing, really, because within the span of literally 1 or 2 episodes, he's back, and it's like the status quo's been reset. So it does feel like it's an absolute waste of time, waste of potential, and there is no reason, at least it's not apparent as of this episode, there is no real reason that Grogu needed to be with Mando in this episode, because he's just that. I'm sorry, like I love Grogu. I love Grogu. Where's my phone holder? Yeah, I'm buying into the Disney money-making machine. Sue me. I love me some Grogu. I do. But I feel like the novelty, so he needs to cover his ears for this. I feel like the novelty is worn off with him a little bit, because he is literally just there for the cutesy factor. And it worked for season 1. It worked for season 2. They shifted a lot of toys, myself included. I bought one. But now it's just kind of frustrating in terms of the narrative, in that it's not advancing in any kind of fulfilling way. And it feels like that Disney panicked and thought that he's the moneymaker, Grogu, so we need to get him back in the show, so we've still got that kind of, that buddy, that duo, that pairing between Mando and Grogu. And God forbid should we have to try and take a risk and try and write for Mando on his own. It's very frustrating, and I'm frustrated at the fact that they concluded that storyline in Book of Boba Fett. I think that was a massive misfire, doing that, trying to connect all the TV shows like some kind of MCU thing. It works for some things, and I know everything's kind of connected with Star Wars, but I did think that was a bridge too far, because it was fundamentally either season opener or a season finale of Mando, which is a problem. So my opinion of this episode, really, before going into it, is that I struggle to find enthusiasm with this one, because it does just feel like a hard reset, and it just feels like it's more of the same of what you've seen. From the opening episode, it does feel like it's setting up a plot point. It's setting up its plot from the very first episode. It's not like the previous 2 series where you have a few episodes of Mando doing random disconnected shit, and it's just kind of like, it's very episodic and it's random encounters kind of thing, until towards the end of the series, where you get to like the last 2 episodes where the plot actually decides to surface and you actually get somewhat of a finale. This one, it's kind of setting up the stakes right off, and what Mando's journey is, in that he's no longer a part of the the way of the Mandalores. He removed his helmet willingly, and he now has to atone for that. And to do that, he has to travel back to Mandalore, which is this completely glassed planet from the Empire's attacks, as far as I'm aware. And he's got to go and bathe in the sacred pool of the mines of Mandalore to, I guess, serve as some kind of baptism or birth back into the creed, and then he can be accepted back into the clan. That's essentially Mando's mission at the moment, and Baby Yoda just happens to be there. Grogu just happens to be there. I'm going to keep it vague right there, so bath time, if you need to drop out, you can do. It's another Pedro Pascal escort mission. Yeah, I guess he's kind of typecast at the moment, isn't he? I will say that. Imagine if instead of Luke Skywalker, it had been Chris Pratt dressed as Mario riding Jar Jar Binks like that dino in Mario Brothers, because that would have been risk-taking. It's me, Grogu. Yeah, well, anything at this point would have been better, because it's Disney Star Wars. We've established they don't take chances. And the only chance they do take is when they make Star Wars Andor, which nobody apparently likes because it's not Star Wars enough. Okay, so I've got notes, plot point for plot point, and I'm going to kind of skim this. This is going to be very awkward because, well, I've got no one watching at the moment, so hopefully some of you watch this afterwards. If not, that's totally cool. But a lot of this won't make sense. Yeah, I was going to say it's Yoshi. Yeah. No worries, man. I'll enjoy my stream. If you do get the episode watched, come back to me, drop me a comment, and I'll reply to you, and we'll get a conversation going about it, dude. But yeah, hopefully catch you on another live stream soon. My first note is that everything looks very silly, like a bad fan or Comic-Con convention. We start off the episode with this kind of inauguration ceremony, or this baptism of this child becoming a Mandalorian. Now, initially, and maybe this is what they led people to believe, you think that perhaps it's a young Din Djarin, and I did think that initially very quickly, but I realized the ethnicity of the child, that he's not the same ethnicity as Pedro Pascal, so ruled that straight out. And I'm sorry, but like the whole Mandalore thing, it was cool when Boba Fett wore this armor, right? He just wore this badass armor that was kind of like a prototype stormtrooper kind of design, and it was cool. And then we get the prequels, and we have Jango Fett wearing the same armor, and it's like, okay, well, it makes sense because it's his dad, fair enough. Like, you know, this armor's passed down between them, fair enough. But then you get into the whole extended lore, and it's the Mandalorians, and they always have to wear this armor, and they can't take it off for anything. And it just gets really silly to me. The whole concept is just really silly. When they're in low lighting or kind of dim lighting, you can kind of get away with it. But these are in broad daylight, and they just look stupid. They look really silly. And they've got this kid, and they've got like this little child-sized Mandalorian helmet that they just kind of plonk on his head, and all the costumes look really awkward. I have also got a note here. When they put this mask on this young lad, it makes the Star Wars respirator noise, or like when the mask is being fused together. You know, in Revenge of the Sith, when the mask comes down on Vader, and it goes like, it's almost like a jet of air coming out, like it's being welded together or something. Or like the respirators just become operational and it's like kicked in. She plonks this like little helmet on this kid, and it does like this kind of like noise when it goes on his head. And I don't understand why, because it's just a helmet. He doesn't breathe through it. It's just kind of plonked on like this awkward rattling around tin can thing he's got on his helmet. So I don't know why it made that noise, because it's just the helmet. It's not like it's sealed at the bottom or anything, or it's helping him breathe, or they need this in atmosphere or anything like that. So that was very strange to me. Yeah, and then all of us, so they're doing this kind of baptism thing, right? They're bringing this child into the creed, I guess, and maybe water's required. It looks like they kind of need to submerge them in the lake. But why would you pick a lake that's got these ravenous, giant Shadow of the Colossus type alligators in there? This giant fucking dinosaur, just like Godzilla, just erupts from the water and starts chowing down on Mandalorians and just wreaking havoc. And it's like, you must know that these things dwell in this water. Like, by all means, like if you want to baptize someone, pick a body of water, any water, but don't pick a body of water that houses fucking giant dinosaur alligators. It's just, yeah, and all of these Mandalorians are completely fucking inept trying to fight this goddamn dinosaur that just comes out of the water. You know, they've got their little ropey lasso things, you know, like the whatever you call them, the fucking wires that they shoot out of their wrists. And I'm like, what are you trying to accomplish here? And it does sweet fuck all. You have a bunch of them that jetpack up on top of its back and plant charges and blow it up, and it does absolutely nothing. You've got them going pew 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 pew, shooting their little blasters at it. It ain't doing shit. They've got, what else have they got on there? They got like flamethrowers which do nothing. They're trying all the tricks of their trade, and it ain't working. All of them together, these fearsome warriors can't even take out this beast, and they just look really silly. They're just getting wasted left, right, and center, and it was just really, really, really hokey to me. And then Mando comes in at the last minute in his Naboo starfighter, and he shoots a couple of missiles at it, and that gets the job done. He meets up with the blacksmith lady, and he's like, I saved you guys' life. And she's like, yeah, I don't care, because you're not a Mandalorian. But to be a Mandalorian, you must bathe in the sacred pool of the mines of Mandalore. he has something that proves that Mandalore is still habitable, because apparently they said it was like poisonous gas on there or something, because it's just been completely nuked within an inch of its life by the Empire. But apparently a explorer has found this chunk of crystal, this chunk of glass from the surface of Mandalore, and has retrieved it, so therefore it's habitable, and he wants to go there and bathe in this sacred waters so that he can be invited back. How he would have proof that he has bathed in this water, why he couldn't just like take off for a couple of weeks, come back, dunk himself in some water and say, there you go, I've bathed myself. Like, how would she know? Is he got to set up like a video camera and record himself bathing to prove that he's gone there? Has he got to Skype call her back at the headquarters so she can see whereabouts he is? I'm not quite sure how that works, and they never really explain it. I've just put I hate the fact that he's back with Grogu. I've just kind of mentioned this at the beginning, so I'm only going to mention this briefly. It just seems like it's really lazy storytelling. It was a lot of potential that kind of went nowhere. You could have had this parallel narrative going on. You could have had Grogu's storyline training with Luke. It would have given us more screen time with Luke and more personality from him. And you could have had Mando's storyline. Eventually, I assume the two would have reunited anyway, but it's just way too quick. And to me, it's like, well, they must have reunited them for a purpose, but the purpose hasn't presented itself yet. It feels like they just wanted some cutesy shenanigans again with Grogu. And again, I hate the fact that they concluded that storyline with Book of Boba Fett. I think that was a huge mistake, especially for people that have just watched this show and this show alone. And I wouldn't blame them, because Book of Boba Fett's terrible. So you assume that Mando would go straight to Mandalore, because that's his quest. That's his Skyrim quest. It's travel to Mandalore and bathe in the pool. But he goes on a side quest first for whatever reason. And he goes back to Navarro to go and see Carl Weathers. And Navarro is now this lush, beautiful capital with bustling streets and trade and schools, and everything's all up on the up and up. When he initially meets with Carl Weathers, there's some, if people are watching this episode, or maybe you've watched it, or you can go back and check this, there is some really bad ADR from Carl Weathers. It's as soon as he meets him on the stairs, or wherever he meets him in the street or whatever. And it cuts to an over-the-shoulder shot of Carl Weathers, but you can still see his mouth moving, and there's just no words coming out. And he's proper like moving his mouth. They're not even hiding it. Usually with some ADR, it's right behind the shoulder, so you can't see the mouth, but this is almost side on, and I can't believe that got past the editing suite. That was just really, really bad. Carl Weathers greets Mando. He's like rocking all of his finery. He's a very wealthy chap at the moment, until pirates show up, and it's all very scary. And they want to drink in what was once a tavern, but this tavern's become a school now. And Carl Weathers politely tells them to leave, or to take their business elsewhere, not to cause a ruckus, because it's a school. There's children in there. These pirates are very demanding, and they say, no, you took our money, or our boss paid you money, which you used to build this tavern in the first place, and I want to drink in this tavern. Ends in an altercation, which ultimately ends with Mando and Carl Weathers just shooting 4 of the pirates and allowing one to escape, which is very, very silly. And he's like, go back and tell your boss that no pirates will be allowed on Navarro from now on. And he skedaddles. Right after this point, so there's a statue of IG-11 in the courtyard. IG-11 being the droid voiced by Taika Waititi from season 1, ended up in the lava bank and kind of has a Terminator 2 moment where he's sinking into lava, and he self-destructs. But obviously, no one's ever really gone in Star Wars, because yes, IG-11 is still alive and operational. They've recovered a good chunk of him. This motherfucker self-destructed, and the torso and the arms, the whole upper body is fine. And he's like, how did you recover this? And he's just like, oh, it wasn't easy, but we found we found him. We managed to put him back together and make this statue. And he's looking pretty complete. Apart from the legs, he's looking pretty complete. It just annoys me that no character in Star Wars can be dead, not even a fucking droid, and we bring IG-11 back for absolutely no reason, or at least no reason at the moment. So they hotwire him. They've got the shell, this metal casing, looks like the goddamn Terminator, and he's like, right, we need to rebuild him. We need to activate his processor or whatever. And they take them to a factory of more Babu Fricks. I don't know the name of the species. Babu Frick, the one saving grace from Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, was Babu Frick. And I think he's almost unanimously loved among the people, the people who love and hate The Rise of Skywalker. I don't think I've ever met anyone actually who likes The Rise of Skywalker. So, but Babu Frick gets a free pass, and there's a whole bunch of them now. So, fine, we get Babu Fricks, and there's this joke that really outstays its welcome where they kind of talk in broken English a little bit, don't they? Like baby language, but you can kind of understand what they're saying. And Carl Weathers is translating for Mando constantly. And it's funny maybe like the first or second time, but then it just goes on and on and on. Let's see. Derpy Entertainment. Good to see you, man. Hope you're doing good. I was disappointed and a bit underwhelmed. Yeah, that's pretty much my review on the episode so far. The episode tone was too family friendly with puns and was too short with 37 minutes for a premiere. The best part of the episode was Grogu hugging Babu Frick. Well, I agree on the Babu Fricks maybe, but I've mentioned already in the review that I'm kind of against Grogu being back in it this early on in the game. I hate how they tied up that storyline in Book of Boba Fett in 1 to 2 episodes. It just feels like they're hitting the reset button on the status quo. So it feels like the whole character arc and the whole plot lead up in the first 2 seasons ultimately led to nothing, because what does Grogu ultimately do in this episode? What does he accomplish? What does him being back with Mando actually accomplish so far? And it's nothing. He's there just for the cutesy factor, like hugging Babu Fricks. Is it cute? Yeah, but it's just kind of, the shtick's just kind of old for me now. You know, as I mentioned, I love me some Grogu. I do, but I think the idea of having 2 storylines, having parallel narratives going on, how half of the storyline we're dealing with Grogu training with Luke. You could even have some Ahsoka stuff in there, because why not? We get more personality with Luke. Telling him about the history of the Jedi, maybe discovering new things as well. And then the other storyline is you have Mando. Eventually the 2 would probably be reconnected, but Lord have mercy, do it in the actual Mandalorian series and not a spin-off show. It says Return of the Jedi treatment, basically. What do you mean by Return of the Jedi treatment? A little bit confused by that. Yeah, you mentioned the one-liners, which takes me very neatly onto my other point. I'm so IG-11's back. I can't fucking believe this. Dude melted in lava and self-destructed, and he's pretty much intact. So Babu Frick, they turn him on, and he's like going insane. He's got like red eyes, and he's like crawling around on the floor trying to murder the fucking murder Grogu and Mando. He's like the Terminator, essentially. And then there's a one-liner. So to take him out, it's Carl Weathers' droid, who's like his butler, I guess, tips over this statue, which crushes IG-11's head. And, what's it? Mando says something like, "Now that's using your head." And I thought, all right, Arnold Schwarzenegger, calm down with the fucking puns. Like, it was really weird and kind of awkward, and you could feel Pedro Pascal kind of dying when he said that line. I may be missing something. Why did he want to reactivate IG-11? I may have missed the reason as to why. So he gets given the quest by the blacksmith that he's got to go to Mandalore to bathe in the sacred pool of justice in the mines of Mandalore. Okay, that's the quest. But he doesn't go straight there. And he goes back to Navarro for some reason to meet with Carl Weathers. And then while he's there, he says, "I want you to reactivate IG-11 for reasons." I actually can't remember the reason why he does that. That doesn't work. And then he's just flying through space. We're in the Naboo Starfighter again, and we get an asteroid chase that's trying to like ape off Empire Strikes Back or Attack of the Clones. And then the pirate guy's there. Surprise, surprise. The one pirate he let go, which is very fucking stupid, is still out to try and get him. And we get this whole space battle. And then we see the Pirate King. And I'm sorry. I know that Star Wars has got some terrible alien designs, but fucking hell, this thing looked bad. Like a really, really bad costume. And he's like this seaweed kind of captain. He looks like Swamp Thing. He looks like a low-budget Swamp Thing, and he's just like this mess and tangle of seaweed and foliage. And has anyone seen Creepshow, the first Creepshow movie, the Stephen King story where he becomes a plant? He looked like him, and it was just a really terrible design, and that was it. It was just like a really corny, hokey scene. As Derpy mentions, like a lighter tone to it. It just felt really weird and just kind of tacked on. Like we didn't need that action set piece at all. There was no reason to have that in the episode. Derpy says, I can guarantee and predict that Bo-Katan is the real villain and going to have redemption story because woman better than man with Disney and Hollywood modern writing. Yeah, which kind of brings me on to the end of the episode here. So we go to so he doesn't even go to Mandalore again. He gets given that quest, but he goes to Navarro for reasons. Doesn't really accomplish anything there. Wants them to rebuild IG-11 because apparently Taika Waititi is hilarious and we have to have him in there again, probably. That doesn't work, so he leaves. We have a completely pointless space battle that doesn't really lead to anything or accomplish anything and is probably there just to have an action spike in the episode. And then we go to a new planet, which isn't Mandalore. Go to fucking Mandalore. He goes to Kalamala. And I'm like, we've got a planet called Mon Cala, and now we've got Kalamala. It's Star Wars word salad, isn't it? Now, is he aware that Bo-Katan lives here? Because I couldn't remember if he flies there specifically to talk to her, which I get the impression that he does. So she must have said, yeah, I'm living in a Mandalorian castle on Kalamala. I actually can't remember if she's ever mentioned that or if this is the first time that we're hearing of this, but he pretty much just flies there and knows that she's there. And when he gets there, she's lounging. She's lounging in the chair like this. You've seen The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug. Thranduil's sitting in the chair like this. Just complete, up her own arse kind of thing. Just lounging away, wasting away in this castle because she's like, well, I did return to Mandalore, but they wouldn't. Does she say that she tried to? No, her people. I don't think she went to Mandalore. Or did she go to? I don't even remember. Did she say that she went to Mandalore because that proves that it's habitable? But she says that her people basically turn her back on her because she didn't win the Darksaber. She didn't have the Darksaber. And she's really angry at Mando about this. So, yeah, I think you're probably going to be right with that prediction. I think they are setting her up as the main villain. They kind of write Gideon out of it at the moment. They said that he's gone to stand trial or something at a New Republic court or something like that. He'll be back. Of course he'll be back. But, yeah, I think the main villain is going to be Bo-Katan in this one. Which, if she's written well, I won't even have a problem with. But it's Disney and it's Disney Star Wars, and we know that they can't write women. They can't write character. Full stop, really, can they? Derpy says, bro, that pissed me off that Mando let him go because season 1 and 2 wouldn't let him go. Yeah, you could maybe argue like, oh, character development, he's not a cold-blooded killer now. But literally, it's like, oh, so you can go and take a message back to your boss that there will be no piracy here. And it's like, well, no, he's going to go back to his boss and they're going to send more men and he's going to piss the boss. So just what are you accomplishing by letting him live? It just makes no sense at all. But, oh, no, we've got to show... It's the Boba Fett thing. It's the Book of Boba Fett. We can't just have a guy who's a cold-blooded, ruthless, lethal killer now because it's Disney Star Wars. We've got to give him a heart of gold, haven't we? And he's a good guy. And it's the whole hand didn't shoot first kind of scenario now. He's just misunderstood. Derpy says they'll write her similar to Rey. Guarantee it. This episode was written by Jon Favreau, and a lot of people defend Filoni and Favreau over every single decision they make. I think they are occasionally interesting. I think they're wildly inconsistent. I think Filoni loves his member berries so much that it kind of pisses me off. When they write good, they can write really good, but it doesn't happen very often, and it's very sporadic when they do so. So Bo-Katan just basically says, "Oh, good luck, Mando," and that's it. So I'm assuming next episode he'll be going to Mandalore. But I know how the previous series have gone. They get given a quest, you expect them to go there the next episode, and they don't go there next episode. They go through some random shit. Remember the Ice Spiders episode in season 2? Just these filler episodes where it's like, that's fine if you want to do an episodic series, but now with Filoni behind it and everything, it feels like they're trying to tie it into everything. You know, Ahsoka's going to branch off from this, and we're going to have Grand Admiral Thrawn in that, and we're going to have Ezra in that, which is going to tie into Rebels and Clone Wars and all stuff like that. So I already think that was a misfire anyway with season 2 of Mandalorian, was tying it so heavily into characters that, you know, Ahsoka, Luke Skywalker, Bo-Katan, you know, these characters, well, Bo-Katan especially, from animated series. And it's like, well, no, can't Mandalorian just stand on its own? Season 1 was pretty good in that you're bringing new characters to the table and establishing new relationships. Just let these characters speak for themselves. Don't keep tying it into everything. But it's your Marvel thing. It's Disney Star Wars doing what Disney do best, and it's trying to make this cinematic universe out of it all. And I really don't think you need to. I think you can just create separate stories, and I think that's what they should be focusing on. Derpy says, I think they are best understanding the fan base. I mean, compared to Disney, yeah, shit, like anyone is. And don't get me wrong, like I'd rather have them at the helm than Kathleen Kennedy, but I don't think they always knock it out of the park. As I say, sometimes when they're good, they're very good, but they're very hit and miss for me. Durfee says, "No, I want calamari because the planet you said." We do get an Admiral Akbar, don't we? In this, I think we do. I think I saw one in this episode, if I remember rightly. That's pretty much the episode. That's pretty much the episode. I'm sure I could do a deep dive on this thing and completely tear the writing apart and how the character motivations don't make any sense, but that's it. You mentioned earlier it's like a 35-minute episode. As a season premiere, I think it was very lackluster. It didn't really get me jazzed. It didn't get me excited to see more of this Star Wars. And I'm kind of hot off on the heels of Andor, which I don't think was a perfect series by any stretch of the imagination. I do think it suffered for some pacing issues, and maybe the bleak tone did get in the way of it feeling like this very entertaining Star Wars series. But it felt like a breath of fresh air. It felt like I was seeing things that I hadn't seen in Star Wars before, with a tone that was incredibly mature, that was actually kind of welcome for a change. And this is just back to Grogu doing cutesy shit. Member berries, awkward one-liners, and Babu Fricks. And I'm like, oh, okay, we're back to this now. Derpy says, it was too short, brother. That's bad for season premiere. And I know they've always opened with... Actually, did season 1 of Mandalorian open with 2 episodes? I can't remember. They may have always opened with 1, but I feel like season 1 probably opened with 2. Andor opened with 3. But I wouldn't even mind if this was like a good season. The season opener of season 2 with the Crate Dragon, yeah, it was kind of completely pointless and it was just an episodic episode. But I thought it was at least cool from a, you know, like a stylistic standpoint. From what am I looking? What's the word I'm looking for? From a visual standpoint, it was interesting. With the Marshal and Mando trying to take down this giant crate dragon that we hadn't seen before. I thought that was kind of interesting. I guess this is like a running theme now with the season openers of Mando, that they all have like a giant fucking dragon slash dinosaur slash turtle creature that chases after them. In episode 1, when he goes after that blue fish guy, he gets attacked by that dinosaur in the water when he's trying to take off. In episode 1 of season 2, he fights the crate dragon, and in this one, they decide to have a baptism ceremony right next to a lake with rabid fucking colossi alligators in there, which makes total sense. Derpy says Andor was better in my opinion. I think it's the best series. I agree. I don't think it was perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know if I'll be rushing back to watch it anytime soon, but it was well written. It had fantastic direction. The acting was spectacular. People felt like real characters. It felt like a real lived-in world. And as I say, it just felt different. It felt different from the usual humdrum Star Wars. And I hope this series gets better. I really do. But as it is, I think what really hurt me was the end of season 2 ended the story in a really intriguing place as to where it could go. Mando had fulfilled his mission. He'd revealed himself. Grogu has gone to a Jedi. He was going to be trained by Luke. Grogu was out of the picture. At this point, Mando doesn't really know what to do. He's going to have to just kind of go back to what he was doing on a day-to-day. After this, you could then go into the whole Mandalore stuff and just focus on Mando and the surrounding politics with that. As I mentioned, you could have a separate storyline with Grogu, so we still touch base with Grogu. Or time away from him could do the character justice so that when the two characters are eventually reunited, there's room for conversation there and mystery there, so we know what Grogu's been up to. But it's all been in 2 episodes, and we've hit the reset button, and it's like nothing's ever changed. If you remove the last couple of episodes of season 2 of Mando, so you don't have this big thing with Grogu going to Luke, does anything really fundamentally change? No, we've got Mando traversing the galaxy with Grogu, and that's it. Or he could have acquired a new ship in between seasons because his other one got destroyed. It's very, very frustrating. Derpy says, yeah, I need an Old Republic movie trilogy or show with a tone of Andor, Disney, for the love of God. Yeah, and if I remember rightly, I think Andor was actually one of the first Disney series to go into production. It's just been pushed back, I think. So, I mean, I'd be down for an Old Republic movie trilogy, provided that it's, as you mentioned, it's written well and it's got the tone of Andor. If that's the stipulation, then hell yeah. And I think we had this conversation actually on my previous stream where I talked about the Warner Brothers taking over Lord of the Rings. There's the logo for it right there. You can check out the video on my channel. We mentioned that there's no such thing as franchise fatigue. It's just poor content. It's just bad content we're getting. And that's how I feel with Star Wars. Andor came out, and don't get it misconstrued. I'm not like shouting, singing from the rooftops that this is the best thing I've ever seen with Star Wars. It was different and it was intriguing, and it for the most part it was good. It definitely held my attention and my intrigue week to week, and it was way better than I thought anything like a series of Andor, a spin-off series about Cassian Andor of all characters would have any right to be. But we've just been given absolute shit after shit. Force Awakens, Rogue One, I didn't mind. It's I enjoyed it very much at the time. Actually, I went to the cinema to see it a whole bunch of times, and I think that was mostly because I was looking for that vacuum in my life that I was hoping to have filled with The Force Awakens, and I was really bitterly let down by that film. That the fact that Rogue One was anywhere above, like, average to above average, I just jumped at the chance, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is like quality Star Wars content." Now my head's come back down to earth, and I've had time to think about it. It's not awful, but I probably won't ever go back to it anytime soon. Last Jedi was the absolute nail in the coffin for me, or it was kind of already there with Force Awakens, in all honesty. But then The Last Jedi just pounded that even more. Solo was terrible. I know some people like Solo, actually, but I wasn't in that camp. I thought it was a completely pointless film. Just a really dull film to look at. Episode 9 was abhorrent, but it was funny. It was entertainingly bad because of how incompetently it was written and how thrown together it was. And then, we've had Mando series 1 and 2, which have been fine. They've been fine. They've been just fine. And then we had Andor. So the fact that Andor was like anywhere close to, oh, actually, this is like written by a real human being, and there's no agenda in here, and it's all of these feel like fully fleshed out characters and believable characters in a real lived in world. It feels like the gritty beginnings of a war, of a resistance building up, and skirmishes and everything. And it was interesting. People were morally complex. There was gray areas to characters, and it was really different, and I really appreciated it, especially that episode arc in the prison. I thought that could have been a short film in and of itself, like that Shawshank Redemption kind of moment where they escape from the Empire facility. Derpy says exactly the motivation of the mission was perfect. Ending it with was Disney. Yeah, I'm nervous about Acolyte after this. I keep forgetting that's coming out. I know nothing of Acolyte, and I just really don't care. It's so sad to me, honestly. Before 2015, I was the biggest Star Wars fan you'll know. I was up there. I absolutely worshipped the ground that Star Wars walked on, and I was so looking forward to the Force. And then fast forward, a little over 5 years, less than 5 years, because I've been feeling this way for a while. I'm just kind of done. I'm just kind of done, and I need a slew of good stuff again. But to me, I feel like the damage is done. With the sequel trilogy, I don't think there's any coming back from that at all. I don't think there is. Derpy says, if you want my ranking, Rogue One is 6 for me, least to favorite. Okay, if we're gonna do I'll finish with this because I'll end it on about 45 minutes. Although this is great, I really appreciate you jumping on, man, and getting a conversation together. It's not me just talking to a camera, so it's nice. If I'm going to rank the main episode films and the spin-offs, okay. Oh, God, people are going to judge me from this. Okay, the best Star Wars film, the best made, the best everything, the best written, in my opinion, is Empire Strikes Back. But Return of the Jedi has always been my favorite ever since I was a kid. And there's something about that film. If I'm going to throw on a Star Wars movie just to watch it beginning to end, probably going to be Return of the Jedi. I love the ending. It's a really emotionally fulfilling conclusion to me. So my favorite is Return of the Jedi. I know that's a very controversial pick, and people who hate their Ewoks are probably, sending the hate mail right now. I acknowledge that A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back are probably better overall movies, but my favorite is definitely Return of the Jedi. So I'm going to put Return of the Jedi at the top. Then I'm going to have Empire Strikes Back. Then I'm going to have A New Hope. Then Revenge of the Sith. Then, just for nostalgia, I've got to give it to the other saga ones. So then I'd give Phantom Menace, then Attack of the Clones, then Rogue One, then Solo. Then there's like a massive gap. There's a massive gap from Rogue One to Solo. We're like in the planet core right now. We are near the Earth's fucking core. Then I would say, again, favorite out of episodes 7, 8, and 9. God, they're all bad. All three of those films are just abhorrent in their own way for completely different reasons. Episode 7, because it's a hopeless remake of A New Hope with terrible writing, terrible characterization, and just completely reset the timeline and didn't advance the story in any compelling way. But structurally, as a film, because it's completely based off episode 4, it works as a structured film. The Last Jedi, there's countless video essays out there, so I don't need to go in depth with that, but it's just, it didn't advance any of the threads that were set up from episode 7, even some of the intriguing ones maybe with character. It just stopped it dead in its tracks, and is a terrible, terrible film. A film that's so perplexing to me. When people really defend that film, I hear them out. I just don't get it. Especially people that say that The Last Jedi is the second best Star Wars movie. It's like, fuck off. You call yourself a Star Wars fan. Obviously, everyone's entitled to their own opinions, even if they're wrong. But then episode 9 is so abysmal from the writing, from bringing Palpatine back, from the conveniences, through the retconning of characters, the retconning of story. But it's the most entertaining one to me because it is so shit, and it's unapologetically shit. So I'd probably say I'd rather watch 9 more so than episode 7 and 8. I'd probably say episode 7, and then my least favorite is The Last Jedi. That's probably how my ranking would go right now. But yeah, I mean, shit. I mean, with Mando, like it might pick up. The previous series of Mandos have always started pretty slow before they kind of get into the plot of things. But as a season premiere, this really didn't do much for me. It feels like they've just hit the hard reset button on it, and it's just kind of tired. And I think I did read somewhere, I don't know if the claims are true, that they actually don't have an end in sight for The Mandalorian. It's almost like they're just making it up as they go along, which is never a good thing. Obviously, it works for some TV shows, but very, very few. Usually, it's good to have a destination in mind. Is that destination going to be the sequel trilogy? Because this is post Return of the Jedi, and I guess we need to start to set up things for Episode 7 if we're including that in canon, which clearly they are. So I don't know. There was the whole thing about taking Grogu's blood. There was the weird tanks of cloned abominations or whatever they are. Are they Snokes? Are they Palpatines? Palpatine made Snoke, apparently. So are they trying to bring back Palpatine? I don't know. I don't know, and I don't know if we'll get an answer to that this series, but I feel like they need to start answering some questions, because at the moment it just feels like we're going through the motions. It just feels like more of the same. Derpy's given me his ranking of the Star Wars movies. Okay, so we've got 11, The Last Jedi. 10 is The Rise of Skywalker, then Solo, Force Awakens, Attack of the Clones, Rogue One, Phantom Menace, Return of the Jedi, A New Hope, Revenge of the Sith, and Empire. I grew up on the prequels, but I know that the original is the best story. Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's a solid list. I'm not going to argue with that list at all. Empire. I think Revenge of the Sith is definitely, in terms of the amount of stuff that it has to deal with in its story, in such a short runtime, in like 2 hours, 10 minutes or whatever it is. The prequels are kind of frustrating, because to me it feels like the Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones is kind of treading water, and the prequel trilogy of the stuff that it should have focused on, it had to rush through. It's like, oh shit, Anakin's got to turn to the dark side, and we've got to kill all the Jedi, and we've got to set everything up for A New Hope, and he's got to fight Obi-Wan, and he's got to do all this, and they had to do it within like half a film. Really, all of that stuff happens like the halfway mark of that film. So if they'd have spread that out over a trilogy a little bit more effectively, then perhaps it could have been better. I grew up with the prequels as well. Okay, Phantom Menace was the first Star Wars film I ever watched. The merchandise was huge. I was very lucky. As an only child, I was a spoilt child. I'll hold my hands up to that. But you know, I thank my parents every single day for, you know, making me very lucky as a child to have all the merchandise that I did in the Star Wars video games, and getting me invested in that world. Right around that time, I think you had the 97 special editions, which are the versions that I had on video. And I just lived and breathed Star Wars from then on, you know, just as a 6-film saga before the dark times, before Disney Star Wars. And yeah, so I've found acceptance with the prequels. Are they good films? Probably not, but they're definitely a lot better than the sequels. There was actually a clear destination in mind. I think there are some fantastic ideas within those prequel films. It's just a shame that George Lucas was kind of a yes man. I think he works best when he works in concert, in orchestra, with other creative individuals that can trim away at some of his more outlandish ideas and package it as a whole, which is exactly what we got with the original trilogy. Derpy says it ended in 2005 to us real fans and even OG fans, regardless if they dislike it now. I agree. Yeah, it's a 6-film saga. It's the story of Anakin. It's the rise and fall and eventual redemption of the chosen one, Anakin Skywalker, and the ending of Return of the Jedi always gets to me. Victory celebration. I know some fans out there love their Yub Nub. I didn't grow up with Yub Nub, so I'd probably feel the same if I did. But to me, the best ending, I witnessed the best ending of Star Wars to me on video, and that's the 1997 special edition ending. It's got victory celebration instead of Yub Nub, which is my preferred thing. You get all of the planets celebrating apart from Naboo. That was added in the 2004 special edition. So you get Bespin celebrating Tatooine and Coruscant, I believe, at that point. And you get Sebastian Shaw as Force Ghost Anakin. That is the best ending for me. That is the ending of Star Wars. And what a fucking brilliant ending it is. Ties everything up. Derpy says the worst decision for the franchise was George Lucas selling it. I mean, I at that point, I don't blame him. The fans all hated him, didn't they? Myself included was massively critical on the prequels. And I guess my opinions really haven't changed. Like, I still have the same gripes with the same gripes that most people do. But I've just reached a level of acceptance, and I guess it took Disney to produce a vastly inferior trilogy to that of George Lucas to make us go back and maybe look at things with rose tinted glasses a little bit now, and we can see where some of those true inspired ideas were and what he was trying to achieve. Did he effectively do it? In some cases, yes, and in a lot of cases, no. But it still kind of felt like Star Wars to me. It definitely, the prequels definitely set their own identity, because it doesn't feel like the Star Wars of the original trilogy, which I know pisses a lot of people off. And if you are looking at, it is annoying that it's so as digital as it is and how clean and crisp and HD everything looks. It doesn't feel like the same world as the original trilogy. But it had an identity of its own, and it still felt like the magic, like the storytelling of Lucas was there, like this grand soap opera type thing. There's the brilliant interview with him where he says that Star Wars isn't about spaceships. It's about, family problems. It's about sons and fathers and redemption, and it's family problems. It's a soap opera in space. That's what it is. And I feel like it's lost sight of that. We've got Dr. Mad Studio. Hello, folks. Greetings from Merseyside. How you doing, man? Hopefully you're doing good. Just kind of, I've gone through my review already, so we're just kind of teeing off here right now, I think, but I'm enjoying the conversation. So I'll probably stay on for an hour. I'll probably stay on for 8 more minutes or so. Derpy says, I was optimistic with Disney because of the support they had with Lucas. They had then Lucas using his CGI. What annoys me the most is when you see, and every now and again in my related video section on YouTube, I'll get some George Lucas interviews come up, and there's one where Kathleen Kennedy is literally sitting across the table from him. And, she's saying like, oh, how we're going to honor George's story and his characters and his themes. And she's such a fucking liar. Christ, it's absolute criminal what happened. But going back to your point about the worst decision that George Lucas ever made, I think it's a fantastic idea for him, because at that point, what has he got to lose? The majority of the fan base really hated him for the prequels and were mocking him and everything like that. Call it, maybe some of it was justified, some of it probably wasn't. I think it's all justified for Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and I will die on that hill. It's, maybe he felt like he took it as far as he could. Maybe he thought, I've made my millions. There's no other stories that I really need to tell, that I really want to tell. If everyone hates me, I'm just going to sell it and make $4 billion off it. What would be absolutely amazing, because George Lucas is an incredible businessman, is if he sold it to Disney and Disney tanked the IP to the point where it doesn't make money. Star Wars is always going to make money, though, I think. Maybe not as much as it once would, but I think it's always going to make money. They tank it so hard that they're forced to sell it, and then George Lucas buys it back for a fraction of the price. And then he comes out and makes his proper 7, 8, and 9. That would be amazing, but it's never going to happen. Dr. Mad Studio says, I grew up in the prequel era, so I don't have any hate towards them. I've watched the new episode of The Mandalorian, loved it. Oh, this is good. This is why I like these live streams, because we get some differing opinions. To me, it was just kind of underwhelming. It just felt like it's going through the motions. It felt like a hard reset. It doesn't feel like it's going in an interesting direction for me at this point. Dr. Mad Studio says, and The Bad Batch, which I thought was one of the better episodes of season 2. I actually haven't watched The Bad Batch. I haven't been keeping up to date with any of the animated stuff. I never even watched all of Rebels or even all of the Clone Wars. I did watch the ending of the Clone Wars, though, just to see how it all tied up. But no, I have heard good things about The Bad Batch, but because I'm so behind with all of the animated Star Wars stuff, I don't know if I'll be watching it anytime soon. But glad to hear it's good though. Just going back to what you said there, I grew up in the prequel era, so I don't have any hate towards them. I did for a time, like Red Letter Media, and I think Red Letter Media, by the way, is justified in near enough all of its, assumptions and its observations about that prequel trilogy. I really do. They were on point with that for the most part. They were on point with pretty much everything they said, and I agree with everything they said. Nonetheless, I can see the potential there. For me, it was more with the prequels is that there are some fantastic ideas in there. It's on paper, it's well thought out. In execution, maybe not as much. But yeah, I've got like no ill will to any of the acting. Hayden Christensen, Jake Lloyd, anything like that. Natalie Portman, they did the best job with what they were given, and there are some fantastic bits. That'd be a fun video to do, actually. Like my top 10 Star Wars moments from the prequels, or my top 10 moments from the originals. Shit, I don't know if I could get a top 10 moments from the sequels. Maybe when the credits hit, perhaps at the end of each one. But that could be fun to do, or just having a space like this where we can talk Star Wars. Because to me now, the only joy that I can get from talking about Star Wars is looking back at the 6 good Star Wars films that we had, the complete saga, in my opinion. That's the only joy that I can find in it now. But yeah, I grew up with Phantom Menace. Phantom Menace was huge. Without that film, I absolutely wouldn't be the person that I am today. Definitely not. It got me into Star Wars. So, when they say that, there's all this verbose political dialogue, I will say, when I did get it on video, I did tend to always fast forward to the cool lightsaber scenes and the pod racing and the final duel and the Gungans. It was all very superficial. And even when I look back now, the same with Attack of the Clones. The bits that I'd always fast forward to were it tended to always be the Geonosis arena, actually. I wasn't really fussed about much else in Attack of the Clones, and that's why I'd rank Attack of the Clones lower than Phantom Menace for me. I still don't mind Attack of the Clones. I still think it's very watchable for me. I don't have as much hate towards it as a lot of other people do. But Phantom Menace, I think, had more of an impact on me. And I also think, just from a visual standpoint, out of all of the prequels, I think Phantom Menace looked the best. I think it had the best blend of practical sets and real locations and actual costumes mixed with CGI. Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith kind of went off the deep end a little bit with the CGI and relied on it a little bit too much, I think. But Phantom Menace had definitely the best blend, I think. And the toys were so cool. The toys were amazing. As I said, I was so fortunate to have the amount of toys that I did. And I genuinely really thank my parents for doing that for me. Because, it kind of made you feel close to the film, didn't it? You got to carry on the story. You got to carry on playing Star Wars even after you were done watching the movie. Derpy says, I was looking forward to Ahsoka show, but this premiere for Mando Season 3 concerns me. I don't particularly have high hopes for Ahsoka. I'm interested to see a live-action Admiral Thrawn, but as long as they're written well. If it's written well, I don't have a problem, but Disney can't write fucking shit, and it's really annoying me. Everyone has different ice cream flavors at the end of that. Yeah, that's it. Still looking forward, just very concerned. Dr. Mad Studio says, I was 6 years old when my dad took me to the Phantom Menace. Got nothing but lovely memories from my first Star Wars film. I was exactly the same age, so I'm guessing you are 30 years old and born 1993, or maybe will be turning 30 very soon. I'm sorry to raise the specter of that for you. But yeah, I was 6 as well. I have very, very fond memories of that. Even from stuff like in the Walker's Crisps had Tazos, like these little disc things that you could buy a binder for of the original trilogy. You could get a Jar Jar Binks head with a sticky tongue that you could latch onto stuff. There was this comlink with you get the action figures in boxes and you get a voice chip. And obviously I was a kid, so everything would be ripped out of boxes, which I really regret now. And you'd put the figure on the chip and they'd say a couple of lines from the movie. I had a Jar Jar Binks inflatable chair. I had backpacks. What else did I had? I had a Phantom Menace chess set. I had the bongo, I had the pod racers, I had some of the video games. I was very lucky. Money boxes, you name it, Star Wars annuals, sticker albums. I was insane for Star Wars. It was everywhere. The merchandise was massive. And they're some of the best years of my life, and I wouldn't change it for the world. It absolutely blew me away. I got into a fight for a week or two with my best childhood friend over a Phantom Menace selection box at school. They were doing a raffle, and we were all in assembly at school. And if they called your name out, you got the chance. Like I think everyone bought a selection box. Like parents bought selection boxes and stuff, like full of chocolates and advent calendars and stuff like that. It must have been around Christmas, and they'd bring them in to donate to this like raffle thing, and they put them in, and you buy into this raffle. If they call your name out, you go up, and you got to pick a selection box. It was, and there were 2 Phantom Menace ones, and me and my friend looked at each other and we said, right, one for you, one for me. If we go up, we're getting a Phantom Menace one. And someone got called up before us, and they took one of the Phantom Menace selection boxes. And right then it was survival. I just turned to my mate. It was like, right, it's do or die. Whoever gets picked up, we're getting it. My name got called out. And my friend said to me, and his faithful words to me was, please don't go for the Phantom Menace one. And I got up to the front, and I kind of looked back at my friend, and I knew what I must do. And I picked up the Phantom Menace selection box, and he didn't talk to me for like 2 weeks after that. That's really, really funny. I think it came on the reverse. There was like an Anakin Skywalker and Sebulba face mask you could cut out of the cardboard and put string through and wear that. Anyway, weird tangent. I just had to share that. Just that memory came back to me. OG lightsabers on store displays. I'll be 30 in April. Welcome to the 30 Club, where it's all downhill from here. I remember seeing Star Wars characters on the Pepsi bottles. Yes, yeah, I do too. Despite Disney's shortcomings with Star Wars, it has never stopped my love for this film franchise. Well, that's good. That's good. To me, it's almost like I just block it off with my headcanon now. It's like I've got 6 Star Wars films, George Lucas's story, the beginning of the saga, and then that was it. Disney just made a really, really, really awful fan fiction, which I choose not to accept as my canon. And that's fine. If people do, you do you. But to me, Star Wars begins with Phantom Menace and it ends with Return of the Jedi. You could even argue, if you really want to be an arse about it, that it begins with A New Hope and it ends with Return of the Jedi. But as I say, I've found acceptance with the prequels now. I almost see the prequels and the originals, not just in name alone, but as separate entities from each other. George Lucas really did give the prequels kind of their own identity, for better or worse. I know some people wanted it to visually match the originals and to feel more in line with that. And I kind of do to a point a little bit as well, deep down. But yeah, for better or worse, I love them. And the memes are great from the prequels. They're fantastic. And they still bring me joy. And I still have fun talking with Star Wars fans about characters like Poggle the Lesser and Newt Gunray. Yeah, so the child's still in there. You know, it's still in there. That the Star Wars fan, me, the 6-year-old, when I went to see Phantom Menace for the first time and loved it, and took my first steps into this much larger world of Star Wars. He's still in there somewhere. But Disney, try as they might, just sometimes it's difficult for him to come out. Dr. Mad Studio says, at least we got the stuff from Legends. I see it as an alternative timeline. It's all there for every fan to enjoy. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like, Legends had the expanded universe, I'm going to call it. I view that way more as canon than episode 7, 8, and 9 ever did. But don't get me wrong, expanded universe did still have some really, really, really terrible stuff. But there was some good stuff. And I'd still much rather have that, to be honest, over the Disney stuff. I just kind of cherry pick. Headcanon is a beautiful thing. But anyway, that will do it, I think, for tonight. I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone that's jumped on this stream and kept this chat going, because this has been amazing. It's nice having a conversation with you and talking with other Star Wars fans as well. No matter, we don't always agree as Star Wars fans, but at least we always share a love for an aspect of the Star Wars franchise, at least, which is really important, I think. In the meantime, if you haven't done so already, let me know your thoughts on The Mandalorian, episode 1 of season 3. I will be back next week. Well, you can expect to see me back every Wednesday at 10 p.m. GMT. I should be joined with JX Editor next week, so we can have a bit more of a back and forth, a bit more of a conversation. He is way more knowledgeable about Star Wars than I am, of the expanded universe and the books and the shows and everything. He really, really stays on top of it. So yeah, please join me next week if you enjoyed this. If you want more, weekly Star Wars content, we're back on it again now. So look for us next Wednesday. In the meantime, this Friday, you can expect to see a Creed 3 review. Very much looking forward to that. It's one of my most anticipated films of this year. Fingers crossed. I just really hope it's good because I love the Rocky films. So you can expect to see that Friday. And then just a shit ton of movie reviews before the 95th Academy Awards. I still have many films that I need to watch and many films that I need to review. So, yeah, if you haven't done so already, please do consider subscribing to the channel for more movie reviews, discussions, and live streams just as these ones. And give me a follow on Twitter as well. I post all the updates on there as to when you can expect to see me go live. You can find me at Hobbit Fan Editor, and I'd very much appreciate you following me on there. This has been an absolute blast. Thank you to everyone that's made this such an enjoyable stream. This has been great. Take care of yourselves, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care, everyone.